Hey folks, I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and let's talk about the Moondrop Starfield 2. So, yeah, as the name implies, this is the follow up to the original Starfield, which actually came out almost 4 years ago. It's actually pretty surprising that it's been that long, especially considering that the original Starfield is like still kind of a pretty solid rec at around the $110 price range. Well, so here's the new one and what's different about it. So there are some physical form factor differences, which we'll get into in a little bit. Slightly different shell, but honestly, a lot of the same. But the tuning is pretty significantly different here on the Starfield 2, and that's what we're going to talk mostly about. But let's start with talking about the physical changes here. I do think that they've subtly improved this quite a bit. I didn't really like the pattern they had on the original Starfield. Just the graphic design on it, I thought was a little bit sloppy and kind of made that, I don't know, being picky, I suppose, but it was a kind of a turnoff for me, to be honest. Whereas here, I think that the physical form factor of this actually looks really, really subtly nice. I dig it. The shell is mostly the same shape as the original Starfield, which is also mostly the same shape as the Canucks Pro, the KXXS, Kato, the Aria, a bunch of different iems all use kind of this similar shell. But I don't know, they have changed up a little bit. Let me pull off this ear tip so you can kind of see. They've changed up the nozzle. I believe this actually screws off so you can change out the filters, which is an interesting change. But more importantly for me, this actually fits a little bit better than I remember this shell typically fitting me. I think the fit stability is a little bit stronger, and maybe it's because they've just kind of subtly changed the angle on, let me pull this into my ear. I think they've subtly changed the angle on the nozzle. Or maybe it's just because I'm using these SpinFit CP360 tips. But yeah, fit stability I'm finding to be a little bit better than, again, I typically expect of these Moondrop dynamic driver shells. Other than that, the cable is actually pretty different than the original, although it might not appear obviously different because the original one also came on a similarly purple cable. The differences here are a few fold. Is that a term? I just made it up. The cable is subtly thicker here than the original, so it's got a little bit extra heft behind it. I'm not hating on that. I think it's pretty well built. But the bigger difference is here in this hardware. So they've gone for fairly, I don't know, slightly bulky, but also slightly ornate looking hardware, right? It's got this gold coloration to it. You can kind of see this brushwork in it, and that's carried through on the Y-split, the chin cinch, the 3.5 millimeter termination, as well as even here on the 2-pin connectors. Now, the connectors are a little bit bulky for what I typically like from Moondrop, and aesthetically, this is maybe a little bit on the, again, kind of ornate, slightly gaudy side, but I don't know. I don't hate it. I think overall, it's actually a pretty clean look, and Moondrop's going to do something different. I'm not going to get mad at them for doing something different than what I expect, as long as it's not bad, and I don't think this is bad. The only thing I would kind of significantly complain about is that this chin slider is not super useful. It moves around, and then these ear hooks are a little bit on the long side. Again, if I had my hair dryer on hand and I don't have my hair dryer, I would change these up and fix them, make them a little bit tidier for my tastes, but I don't know, I'm being picky. So yeah, that's the physical differences here with the Starfield 2. Let's talk about the sound differences. And okay, well, let's describe the original Starfield so we know what we're talking about from, oh, I like how it's just kind of moving itself. What's our starting point? So the original Starfield, again, came out almost 4 years ago. I would describe as kind of a mild V-shaped sound signature, which favored more the low end. It was a little bit on the warm side, a little bit thick. And to be honest, like I thought it was like a very pleasant, unoffensive sound. It would work well for a lot of people for sure. But what maybe held me back from loving it entirely was just it was a little bit woolly, a little bit soft in its presentation. And I think that came from the bass quality. Now here with the Starfield 2, I think just right off the bat, I think the bass quality is improved pretty significantly. It's a lot tighter, it's punchier, it's got more definition to it, and I think that's good. But overall, I would still say that this is actually less of a bass-focused sound signature versus the Starfield. So if you're familiar with the Starfield and how bassy and warm it is, this is different than that, okay? I think the bass quality is better, but it's less overall warmth and thickness, so there's less presence from that bass. Mostly you get a significantly boosted top end on this, which to be honest, I did not expect. Kind of came out of left field there a little bit. Now, some negatives come from that, as you might expect. I would say that it's a little bit over hot in the top end. It does give you this contrasty sound, so definitely on the V-shaped sound signature wise. Not as much in the bass emphasis, although there is some bass emphasis. It's mostly in kind of like the top end, but it gives you this really sharp, contrasty sound, which can sound maybe a little bit thin sometimes. Vocals also have definitely a strong sense of edginess to them, maybe even sometimes a little bit of a wetness that can carry through to being on the edge of sibilant. But for the most part, I don't find it to be overly sibilant. It's a little bit edgy and a little bit sharp, okay? It's a little bit intense, a little bit over sharpened, and yeah, it's on the verge is what I would say with that. So if you know that you are sensitive to just overly forward vocals and like sharpness in vocal content, this one might be a little bit much for you. Now, the positives of this change are that I think that's actually pretty significantly improved the technical performance. Again, with the original Starfield, I described it as being kind of a little bit woolly and soft in its presentation, and you cannot say the same for the Starfield 2 here. So that much I definitely appreciate. It's got like pretty good imaging, actually. I would say for the price, like standout imaging, sharp definition, really clear separation between sounds, all that business. Just a clean, kind of high def sound signature, which I like. But it's at the risk of being a little bit over much. In fact, let me I didn't pull this up. This is the frequency response that we have here on the Starfield, and I can pull up the original Starfield for comparison so you can start to see the difference. Let me change up that color. Let's give us a red. So the original Starfield is in red. The new Starfield 2 here is in blue. And you can see bass levels again. They look like they're about on par, but what's going to make this bass on the new Starfield 2 sound significantly less is just that, well, one, you have more of a thinness here in sort of the mid range, and a lot more forwardness here in the upper mid range and lower treble, which again just significantly tilts the tuning of the Starfield 2 towards brightness. Now, you could kind of think of the Starfield 2 as the SSR successor that we never really got. If you like the SSR sound, you like that, fairly intense vocal presentation that comes with really kind of standout technical performance for the price. Well, the Starfield 2 kind of does that. The risk, though, is just that it's a little bit too intense. And I do think that versus the SSR, this is even edgier and sharper. Whereas the original SSR can, it's definitely a little bit forward in the treble, but it has kind of a smoothness to its presentation that I find fairly inoffensive. Again, this here with the Starfield, it's a little bit edgy. And because of that, I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. It's a risky pick. But if you know you like this sound, I think you're going to dig it because, again, the technical performance is pretty stellar for this price range. If you want to check it out, of course, I've got it linked in the description down below. Shout out to Shenzhen Audio for sending this in for review, by the way. And while you're down there, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ding the YouTube bell. And if you want to carry on this conversation, I'm not doing live streams for the next month and a half or so, so join me on Discord. I've got that also linked in the description down below. And we will pick up this conversation where we're leaving it off, which is right here. Or, I don't know, that was weird. That was awkward. But I'll see you in the next super review. Have a good one. Cheers.